Hey guys, what's up? It's Daniel. You were about to see an exclusive montage, if you will, of an interview we just wrapped about some of the juicier details from the songs on the upcoming EP, and I am pumped. Action. You don't get it?
No, I get it, but it's just weird. It looks weird.
It's a new thing.
Let's get no.
I just can't stop from thinking of those times. Is it snowing in Boston like it's snowing in my life?
Boston. This is your first love song, right?
First love song, yeah. Also my first love, if you will, more so. So it's, it's a pivotal moment for anybody, regardless of if you're writing about it or not. But my thought producing it was, I want to keep it simple. I want people to feel like they're a 15-year-old version of me and be in love. I just wanted to try to bring the listener in and keep the vibe of the song seamless, from the writing to the composition to production. So we tried to say, okay, what could really embellish that vibe for them? And it was just simple. It was, me on a jazz kit, me on an acoustic, me on a grand, and me on a bass. And I think it kind of, translates that way from the music to the song and the story. And oddly enough, it being the oldest song on the release, it's had some of the best feedback. So I think we achieved it, hopefully. Yeah, All You Need hits home with me. It was written about somebody in my life struggling with addiction, so it was a really emotional time for me. But really the message was just, they didn't really understand that they needed themselves, It's like you don't need all these things to fill you up and make you feel better. You need you. And it's, it sounds cliche, but it's an old adage. It's true. That's all you need. Keeping it close to the chest with this and keeping it tight, because this one was so it was important for me to have my message screaming loud, but it's also hard when you're playing everything, it's at different times, to keep it really in sync in terms of the emotion more than the timing, if that makes sense. So it's kind of trying to keep the vibe of a emotional message intact from instrument to instrument. That was a challenge. Yeah, I would say more time in composition and production and piecing them, and not so much because it was the biggest challenge for me in mixing and composition, but in, like I said, the message. It was so important to me over some of the other tracks that it was this has got to be right for me, right, not so much for anyone else. So I'm happy with it. I like that song.
Well, but I guess that means you know how hard I've tried. But it's all the same when I meet you. Let it rain down on me.
It's All Right With Me. Fun fact one, it was called, the studio name that we gave it was Midnight Mandolin, right? Because it started with us a few beers deep, writing a riff on an acoustic and a mandolin, and my buddy Eli was engineering, and we're sitting here and he's just just go, and I'll track, just go, do whatever you think of. So I just started playing something, and then he's like, all right, acoustic. I'm like, all right, we play something. He's like, all right, piano. All right, we play something, organ. Okay, he would just do anything at it and saw what stuck. Drums, bass, electrics, and basically, fun fact too, this was a huge take. It's All Right With Me was a 10-minute jam, and the next day we came in and we looked at it and we were like, whoa, what did we record, one, and two, what can we do with it? Because we liked it, but it was a matter of how can we make something of substance out of it? How can we make something that you would retain? It was kind of cool. I think most people in an audience might miss this, that it's sometimes even what you might classify as pop music or indie pop or indie folk or whatever seems straight, but was still grassroots. It was still jammed, maybe around a fire or in a room drinking a beer and just doing your thing. Yeah, I mean, It's All Right With Me in composition is the newest song. It's Alright With Me, when we made it, made all of us decide that we should put all 6 of these in an EP because we all liked it. We thought, oh, this is being a new song to the studio is kind of a poster child of this album. And more so my tribute lyrically to the rest. Because these, you gotta remember, some of these are really old and you know, how deep or how genuine or how insightful can you write something that's 16, 17. So it's kind of my thing to say, all of these things, it's alright with me, I don't care. You know, these are just past versions of me, and this is me now, and this is my tribute to them.
That's cool.
That'll never change the things I've heard, or the way the moonlight dances in your eyes. Well, I don't like to see you crying, oh, I won't sit here and watch you fall, just so I can fly. So find the one you always say.
You would dig this. I saw a TED Talks, which I think everybody should watch, that like lit me on fire. I think the composer's name was Benjamin Zander, and he teaches kids classical music, right? Something you would never expect me to get into, right? Hearing these tracks, but I loved it. Just because this guy was so genuine, he like music. It's like he spoke music. Like that was his first language. It was just it poured out of him. So. You know, for me, watching something like that, I can't help but come in here and then just try to not recreate it, but try to be in that mindset.
Right.
You know? So I was like, okay, let's take a step back. This was, I think, the 3rd or 4th song we tracked. I think it was the 3rd song we tracked. And so here I am, like in a room of instruments that I'm eventually going to be sitting on or playing on, and I'm like, okay, how can I make a song that's not inherently classical? You know what I mean? How can I add a dynamic movement to something that would be considered, you know, 4 chords and pretty straight?
Almost mixing genres to a certain extent.
Sort of, yeah, and not blatantly, because I feel like it's not hard to do. It is hard. Respectfully, it's more streamlined to make a 50s throwback doo-wop, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder from my end to give this subtle, like, okay, this is again, like kind of an indie rock sound, but there's influence heavily in there from classical composition. And if you listen for it, you can hear it. We made every like nuance in this song and the whole EP as important as the next. Like I didn't want to go in the booth and show off vocally, because it wasn't about the vocals, it was about everything. Everything has a meaning for me. You know, it's like I wanted the piano to give you the same emotion that the guitar did, to give you the same one that the drums did, and the same one that I give, like in conversation. But it's like I like people to have to dig for things. I like to dig for things. Right. So the coolest part for me is if you want to hear the depth of the album, you can't take it at face value. And that's kind of cool because I didn't mean to do that. None of us meant to do that. We had no intention of that. But if you want to hear these intricacies I'm talking about and the influences that you wouldn't hear on first listen, you have to dig. You have to listen for things you wouldn't normally listen for, which I love that, so I'm happy with it.
Could we breathe just once more? If we see who we are, I will stand and make sure you never fall. You never.
I mean, I think how fall reads to the ear too is just like you said. It's like I tried to make it theatrical. I wanted it not really theatrical, but cinematic. Yeah. I wanted it to have a soundscape. I wanted it to be kind of a trip, kind of a, you know, like I was saying, like a journey in a way, an emotional journey. But it's like, you know, you have to remember too, it's hard when I played that song for like 6 years. I wrote that one at 17, I think, 17-ish. And so it's a lot of people got used to hearing it acoustic live, right? With nothing, me and an acoustic. But so for me, the problem was I was used to hearing it live, just me and an acoustic. So I was like, all right, there's a million ways you can go producing a song, like more than a million. There's an infinite number of ways you can go. So producing something, you kind of have to step back and be like, all right, what parts of this are important to me? Not in the music sense, but in the emotion, if that makes sense. So you kind of have to like pull yourself out of your body, get away, you know, remove your ties to the song because you've got half a decade's worth or more, and then be like, all right, what message do I want them to get completely? At the end of the day, you have to give people a song they're going to want to hear, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a million ways you can do that. You can put things in a song that most people would think are just a pop progression and make them interesting. You can find levels of depth that like subside under the overall the arc of the pop progression.
Right.
The first song I approached in the mentality where it's like it doesn't have to be the band setting that I was always used to playing in. It could be anything, you know. So it's like I think when you bring in different sounds, different instruments, you play them differently. I mean, I was playing drums on that on an acoustic guitar with no strings on it, instead of a bongo or instead of a kit. You know, it's like because I think the sound difference, as minute as it was, tells a different story. It's probably where I came into my own as a producer, maybe, you know, or an engineer, or both, where it's just like my biggest attempt yet to make a guitar vocal something completely its own and completely pull the guts out of the song and just rework it. So my thing was, let me make this the song for myself that it, you know, comes from a total different standpoint of all the rest. And I think it sticks out. I think it worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way you spoke in the morning when you woke, and at night when you were late.
You know, on a small note, it was titled 4 a.m. mainly because I started writing it at 4 a.m. I landed in Connecticut, bouncing from show to show, and so that's when it sparked. But more so, it was, you know, I find myself more often than not kind of alone with my thoughts at 4 a.m. I'm a night owl. I think I can't stop thinking. I have to like trick myself into falling asleep. And it was a weird time. I mean, I guess you could kind of classify it as depression a little bit, but it was just, you know, it's one of those moments where like your life's kind of rearranging, if that makes sense. And so that's when I started writing it. When I finished it, like whenever this was, a year and a half ago now, but 5 years after I started writing it, let's say, it was at the same time. I mean, I wrote it driving back from Boston at probably 2 a.m. So it's the same thing. I mean, it all comes back to who I am as a person, like how I operate, and that's my think time with my thoughts. 4 a.m. You know, at late nights it's funny because they can either be like complete savage or it can be inspirational. It's like you never really get to pick. It does come from a place of introspection, and I think the music it doesn't really call for that from the listener, but it allows it. You know, it's like when we didn't fill it full of instruments, you have time to, you know, be introspective. You have time to insert your own thoughts and your own storyline over the lyrics, which is important. That's what it comes down to. You know, these songs have to be relatable to you, the listener. You have to put yourself in there. And it's funny, like there was a study, I think it was in the 50s, I could be wrong, don't quote me, but they made teddy bears with straight mouths. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah.
They did it so that the kid could interject its own, or his or her own emotions into the bear. I wanted that song to be the teddy bear from the 50s, if that's when it was. Could have been the 30s, I don't know. But
That's a good way to put it.
It was at some point.
That's an
So yeah, we're excited. If you can't tell, I hope you guys are too. Be sure to check it out when it drops. Links will be in the description somewhere to let you know where. You don't have to dig too hard. And big props for sticking through this whole video. You guys are the best. Thanks a bunch. Bye.
I'm trying to say, 'cause I don't need you, and it's alright with me.
And yeah, don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna shrink out of here. Just gonna get out of frame. I'm out. Yeah. No. I'm not.